Good morning. I'm behind the gavel with Jason today. Many of you have seen this coming up and have posted and commented and or liked the event. I'm trying to share this on my page. We're going to be talking about appraisals and evaluations. What's the difference and why is this not? There we go. All right, share instantly. All right. Turn down that volume too. All right. So this is from last spring at the KCPT Antique and Fine Art Appraisal Fair that we put on with Kansas City Public Television. That's myself. That was Justin. Myself, Amy, and Justin Rogers appraising a piece of artwork, or more precisely, we were evaluating a piece of artwork. And due to the stay-at-home order, we put out a special this last week, $25 evaluations, 40% off appraisals. Obviously, we're staying at home as well. Amy, we're keeping her payroll going as long as possible. And as a way to do that, trying to create some activity, some revenue, we did these things. What I didn't realize is that there's going to be a lot of questions about what's the difference between an appraisal and an evaluation. What do I need? What are they? And all of those kinds of things. And so realizing early on, or shortly after the first email went out, that these were some pretty, there's a lot of people that had these same questions. We thought we'd put together behind the gavel with Jason today and talk about that. First off, I want to thank a bunch of people, Beth, Tom, Patricia, Carol, William, Mary, Chris, and many others for responding to the emails, taking advantage of the offers, asking questions, all those kinds of things. We really do appreciate it. We're used to having people in our office regularly, all those kinds of things. So hearing from people in any form or fashion, whether it's via email, messages here on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, texting for people who have my personal texting, calls, all those things mean the world to us right now. We love hearing from you. We miss seeing you guys, talking to you guys, and engaging with you on a regular basis. So thank you all so much for those of you who responded to that offer, are taking advantage of those offers, and just for asking questions about it. So a couple of things. What is the difference between an appraisal and an evaluation? Let's start there. And we're going to talk some pretty basic terms, some pretty basic ideas, and maybe get a little bit more in a few minutes. Basically, the main difference is an evaluation is much more a response to an object with no or some or minimal research to either verify or find out that we are not incorrect about what we originally thought. We do this all the time in our business. Obviously, we have people email us questions every day. I have this chest of drawers, I have this vase, I have this painting, I have this print, whatever it might be, piece of jewelry. What's it worth? And so what's it worth is a loaded question, obviously. And so, hey, Vonda, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let us know. We're talking about the differences between appraisals and evaluations today and questions along those lines. And so, what's it worth? Let's get back to that. So an evaluation is, we're going to talk about, this looks like a piece of pottery, it's a piece of Roseville made in the 1940s. We have sold and seen other people sell these at auction for $40 to $60, or we've seen these in the shops for $75 to $100, or it's a painting by an artist who has some recognition, not worth a ton. It might be worth $500 to $800 at auction. A Chinese rose medallion a coffee pot that we actually had an evaluation of this week. $100 to $150 at auction, $200 to $300 at retail. That's what an evaluation is. An appraisal, and I found quite a bit of specific definitions online, but essentially an appraisal is a professionally researched and documented evaluation of an item that has more gravitas to it, right? It has more meaning, right? So I can tell you what something is in my experience, but when I do an appraisal, that goes to a certain degree as far as respectability and usability and those kinds of things. But an appraisal, I do the research, or we do the research to find comparable sales at other venues in the most often found place where that piece is sold. So we would probably find sales records from other auction houses that sold similar paintings. If an object isn't sold at auction regularly, let's say more contemporary jewelry, we might use price points of retail price points that we find at jeweler stores online. Oftentimes, if you have the information about, let's say, a diamond, you can Google search, what's it going to cost me if I go out and buy that piece today? And so that takes time, it takes effort, it takes some skill. You have to know how to do the research, where to look for that information. And then we compile a document that it's essentially a legal document. And the thing that you want to look for if you're looking for appraisals is it USPAP compliant. I want to give you a couple of definitions here, abbreviations during this, and I'll post these later in the comments, what the initials are and what they mean. And I'll be posting links to different things in the comments below as well. So USPAP, USPAP, stands for the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. And it's a 2-year designation. It's put together by the association groups. There's 3 of them. The AAA, which is Appraisers Association of America, the ASA, which is the American Society of Appraisers, and the ISA, which is the International Society of Appraisers. And I'll talk about them more in just a minute. But the USPAP is a 2-year designation. It's meant to establish standards for all appraisals, whether they're talking about real estate, personal property, business liquidation, or other donations, all those other factors. And it's to promote and maintain a high level of trust in appraisal practice by establishing requirements for appraisals. So we have been USPAP compliant in the past. We don't do a lot of appraisals when we're having auctions, but we are going to recertify our USPAP compliance as soon as we can, in case something like this happens again. You know, coronavirus, they're working diligently on finding cures, and vaccines and social distancing and staying home are all going to be good, but long term, it's not going to do anything until the virus is nullified. And so we might have similar things happen again in the fall. You know, historically, viruses are a cooler weather phenomenon, and usually there in the summer, they're less invasive and less powerful and potent, but the virus will not disappear over that time. So we have to be concerned about and cognizant of these things now and in the future. So USPAP, again, Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. Thanks for watching, Paige and Amy. If you have any questions about what we're talking about today, go ahead and post them below. We're talking about the differences between appraisals and evaluations this week. So the first thing the first question an appraiser should ask you, and you should be thinking about before you get an appraisal, is what do you need the appraisal for? So let's go back to that what's it worth question, right? So we get this question many times a day in our normal business practice. And so what is the meaning of that question? What's the definition of that question for you and for us? So we always ask several questions in response to that question. Are you looking for estate distribution, equitable estate distribution amongst your family? Do you need insurance replacement value? Are you looking to donate the object to an organization, an association, an agency? Are you just looking to find out what it's worth to sell it? All of those things have different definitions, they have different valuations, and they mean different things. It brings up we'll talk, in conjunction with that, somebody asked, why are appraisal values higher than an evaluation? And this is why. An appraisal value oftentimes takes into account, you're buying retail, because an appraisal, if you're getting a check from an insurance company based upon an appraisal, it's because you've had loss, damage, fire, tornado, it got damaged in a move, it fell off the wall if it's a painting, all of those things, right? So if you're getting a check from an insurance agency, insurance company, you don't want to get what you paid for at an auction, you want to get money enough to go out and buy it. And they also take into consideration some of the effort necessary to do that. Some objects don't need a lot of research to find a comparable diamond. Most diamonds you can find pretty quickly online, and the values are pretty standard. In fact, it used to be, jewelry appraisals were a ton higher than secondary market value. Now they're higher because the retail price point is so much higher than the wholesale price point on jewelry. Most jewelry is a markup. And so that valuation has changed a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. So that's why appraisal values are higher than auction and maybe even retail. It also takes into account there is some emotional loss, right? Oftentimes if we appraise something, we have an emotional connection to it, especially in antiques and art. Oftentimes these are things that are inherited or that you've spent time, passion, energy to collect. And so those things come into factor as well. Another question we had is, do appraisals affect the selling price of an object? Which is a really interesting question. And it's an interesting thing to monitor. Obviously, we sell, tens of thousands of items every year, almost 1,000 paintings, well over 1,000 pieces of jewelry. And appraisals are interesting in that they define the object. So a good appraisal will accurately document the object so that you know more precisely what it is. And so in that regards, yes, it does affect selling price positively, especially for obscure pieces, because they help define what it is, right? And if you have an appraisal from a reputable established company that has a track record of doing good work, and they say that this vase is 18th century Chinese, so maybe more than if a fly-by-night or if there's no appraisal with it at all, right? So it can affect value positively. I've never seen it affect it negatively, but you have to keep in mind when the appraisal was done, just like today. So just yesterday, Amy, who I think is still watching, Amy who's worked for us for a dozen years now, during this time, she's attending a lot of webinars. She's researching different things. And yesterday she attended the Navigating Personal Property Valuation during COVID-19 concerns webinar that was put on by the AAA, the ISA, and the AAA, ASA, and ISA did a joint webinar yesterday, and they had a large panel, including people like Lark Mason and Tim Luke, who are both Antiques Roadshow appraisers. They had auction houses, again, that's Lark Mason's area. They had professional appraisers on there, Appraisal Association executives on this call. And so appraisals done 3 weeks ago, maybe the values might be invalid today. We won't know for quite some time. They were saying that the middle market, which is where our company really kind of exists, that few $100s up to low 5 figures, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, that's kind of the broad range of the middle market, is so far been largely unaffected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Low-end pieces, high-end pieces are seeing struggling results. But the middle market is staying relatively stable. Traffic on websites, bidding activity, all seems to be normal and or increased. Live auctioneers, I talked to them this week, is seeing their web traffic is double week to week as they progress during this pandemic. And so it's an interesting thing to follow. But back to affecting selling price, a good appraisal will help define the object and give it some more value. Now, will it take a $100 piece at auction to make it a $300 piece at auction? No, but it will take a $100 piece and maybe make it a $130 to $150 piece. So you're probably not going to get the cost of the appraisal back if the auctioneer and or you'd have a better idea of what it is. But if you don't know, it might be well worth it. Thanks for watching, Diane. We're talking about appraisals and evaluations today. What's the difference and some other factors. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them below. We'll answer them during the course of the conversation. Some of the values that you get with an appraisal: fair market value, replacement value. Again, those are all different than auction estimate because, again, auctions are a more defined time frame, right? An auction is going to take days, weeks, or maybe some months to promote and have the auction. Whereas retail, some people will sit in inventory for months or years. And so the values are going to be different in that. So let's talk about, I think we kind of touched on the basics of it. Obviously, appraisals have been around for a long time. Auctions have been around for a long time. These are all things that there's a fluctuation. Values, like I said, 3 weeks ago for something will be different than they are today, will be different again in 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years from now, depending upon how long this repression of the economy takes place. There was some economics, uncertainty coming into 2020. We'd had a long time growth in the markets and in housing and everything else. It's going to be really interesting to see how COVID affects values going forward. And once we learn how to deal with COVID, does that help stabilize everything? I know real estate market here in Kansas City is still going along quite well. It's an essential market, and so they're still listing houses. They're still closing on houses daily. I was on a Zoom call yesterday with some people, and in the last 3 days, there was well over 100 closings in Johnson County. So there's still activity out there. There's still activity in the auction market out there. We're not today. We're talking to our clients this weekend about the possibility of when we're going to go back online. So we've had a lot of people ask us to go online with that auction. Let me tell you, dozens of people have emailed us or sent us messages or called me or texted me. When are you going to put that auction online? We're sitting at home doing nothing. We're redecorating our house. We're looking at our collections. We want to look at what you guys have to sell. So those are all things coming up. Let me talk about a couple of things you can look at on your own, that if you're just curious on your own about appraisals in general, how to get in the industry, what's going on. All the appraisal associations have websites. I think all of them have some reference to what's going on today. One of the neatest things is the International Society of Appraisers. Right now on their website, they are offering for free their entire library of webinars. And this includes all of their classroom continuing education webinars about specific assets, specific items. Amy's been watching a bunch of these on antique furniture, Chinese export porcelain, Chinese silver, glassware, jewelry. I think they have 30 plus videos, webinars in their library. They're offering those for free right now. So that is a wonderful opportunity to get a little bit deeper dive into some of the areas that you might be interested in. And I'll post a link to their website in the comments like I talked about before. There are some really interesting things happening around the country, a lot of creative things happening around the country right now. Sarah Reeder, who's a appraiser out in Virginia, I believe, has started doing, obviously appraisers. The biggest thing, the other big takeaway from yesterday's big webinar was that the appraisal industry is going to really suffer short term because it is historically a business and industry where people go into a house, document the piece, talk to the client, establish whatever provenance is available, inspect the piece in person to see if there's damage that the client doesn't know about, which is oftentimes the case. Obviously, we can't do that right now in a lot of areas around the country. And even those areas that you can, more often than not, our appraisal clients are older. And so they're much more concerned about allowing anybody into their homes, and understandably so, as is everyone else. And so Sarah Reeder posted what she's doing. She's making, instead of an object per, an hourly rate, she's breaking it down. You can do certain different things, doing a lot of video conferencing, FaceTiming and things like that. And if you're interested in what Sarah's doing, arteffectualhistory.com. She's been in the business a long time, has a really impressive resume, and is doing some interesting things, which I think other appraisers are probably doing similar, but she's the one I've seen on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, generally speaking, and of course, right now, sitting at home all day, I'm there several times a day. I don't know if you guys get the notices on your iPads about your screen time, but it's going up every week right now, which is another reason why we want to get our auction online. Some of the other things that we're doing during this time is I've been reading a book called Auction that is from 1962, I think. 1963, first printing. That's about the art auction industry back in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s. And it talks about the history of the auction industry, which is really fascinating, looking about Sotheby Park Bernay and Christie's and all these other historically important auction houses. Some of them are still around, others aren't. Talks about antique auction art dealers, It's mainly the art markets they're talking about. So it's a really fun book. I read it, I think it's my third time through it. Like I said, Amy is attending webinars, studying and research on different asset classes that we get contacted on about regularly, and so on and so forth. I think that's about it. I've gone through most of my page here. Again, thank you all so much for your continued support. We do appreciate every one of your comments, questions, calls, emails, posts, shares, all of those things. We definitely appreciate that now more than ever, probably. I'll be posting links in the comments below here shortly this afternoon and this evening. Hopefully you guys are staying safe, staying home, staying strong. That's all we can keep talking about. And if you have any other questions, please let us know. Post them here. Send us an email at info@kcauctioncompany.com. Info, INFO, at the letter K, letter C, auction company spelled out.com. Give us a phone call, 816-283-3633. Post comments here. Send us direct messages either here, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. We have we're on a lot of social media. We're available in many, many different ways. I can loan a book, so you have to read the same one 3 times. I have a lot of books, Vonda. Trust me, I have plenty of books, but there's some that is like certain movies you watch over and over and over again. There are certain books, especially something like this, that's talking about, it's written very provocatively. It's really a fun read. For me, it wouldn't be for a lot of people, but it's a way to kill some time. I've gone on, going on 2, 3, 4, 5 walks a day. I'm sure we're all doing different things during this time. Just talking to you guys today, trimming up the beard a little bit, putting on a button-down shirt for the first time in a week, kind of helps boost the spirits as well. So thank you all so much for watching. Have a great weekend. Do what you can to keep yourselves safe, and we'll talk to you soon.